Welcome to another reaction stream heading into Gimmick 34. We're going to be looking at what's happened in Gimmick 33 so far. I'm guessing a lot of us are in the same boat. Those of you who brought in Ronaldo or free-hitted, fair play. You're probably gaining quite a bit. And I've actually only just about gone down to 51k despite only scoring 20 points so far. I've still got my captain to play, Mohamed Salah, against United. That should be very interesting tomorrow. That should be a really good game. And other than that, really, a few more double game week players, not too many. Weghorst finally returned with a goal and 3 bonus points. His customary yellow card as always, but still pretty impressive. Che Adams was benched and didn't play a single minute against Arsenal. So if he doesn't play against Burnley at all again, then Reece James could be coming on for him. But other than that, everything else will pretty much stay the same. I was very close, and I'm saying very close, to getting James Maddison in. And unfortunately, or should I say fortunately so far, I just kind of skewed that and didn't get him in for Rafinha, but he could still go crazy against Everton in the second game, and I still think he's a great long-term option. But what I like about my situation now heading into Gimmick 34 is that I have 2 free transfers and I can get maybe double or triple Chelsea, which I'll talk about in my team selection video. But I'm going to go through all the questions that come into the live chat, so be sure to comment as always. Thank you very much to everyone who's tuning in. We normally do these on the Sunday, sometimes on the Saturday, but I wasn't able to yesterday. I was out, and now I'm back here. And you know, if you want to talk about FPL, if you still are into the game, then we'll talk about it. So thank you very much to everyone. So welcome Flying Dutchman, thank you very much, and appreciate you dropping by. Welcome Callum, Captain Ronaldo this week, fair play. I'll be honest, I talked about skipping him in my transfer tips. I don't really, let's say, regret my decision of saying he should be a skip, but on the free hit, it was always a good idea to have at least one of Bruno or Ronaldo. But I didn't expect Ronaldo to outscore Bruno in the way that he did, and that's why sometimes Ronaldo is known as this flat track bully nowadays. But he's got that in his locker. He can just produce a hat-trick out of nowhere. He's done it against Spurs, scored a brace against Arsenal. He can do it on the big stage as well. And I'm actually expecting him to do very well at the Emirates next weekend. But against Liverpool, not really expecting United to do much, but you never know. You know, it's a really fierce rivalry. Things can go pretty close there. Hamza, welcome. My team: Schmeichel, Robertson, Matip, James, Cancelo, Salah, Son, Mount, Maddison, Kane, Pukki, Mateta, Gordon, Amati. That looks like a wildcard team, so that looks pretty good. Let me know if that is a wildcard team, by the way, but I do like that. Kane, Pukki and Mateta is arguably the best front three right now. Tony's the only other one that you could maybe say has a shout in being into that team, or the best forward line. Yeah, I think that looks pretty solid, to be fair. I've always said this about Matip. I prefer Trent. I think he's worth that extra 3 million, but if you can do a lot, such as you have done, you know, having Salah, Son and Kane, then maybe it is worth going for Matip, because it looks like Kanate is playing the Cups and Matip is playing in the Premier League, but we'll wait and see. Things can change easily. Good evening to you as well, Karaki. Thank you for always tuning in. Mount and Havertz for Rafinha and Barnes. To be honest, yes, I'd say it's actually worth it. I still like Barnes in the long term, and Rafinha shown some very good form, 15 points in his last 2 starts, but that makes sense. And I think Mount and Havertz are probably 2 of the best Chelsea options that they have to offer, especially in the attack. Some would argue, or maybe most actually, that double defense is better, but to be honest, I actually would prefer at the moment double attack. Looking at the Gimmick 34 fixtures, when you look at Gimmick 36, that's where it could be a bit different though. When corner's a differential on a free hit, yeah, I've seen that. I mean, look, I actually thought corner was a decent option, but I actually kept talking about this in my deadline stream. I think he should have been benched. For some people who are saying, should I start him or Saka or others? Obviously, corner could still end up outscoring him, but that penalty miss was very unfortunate, to be fair. I'm still a bit kind of disappointed it wasn't Weghorst taking it, but there you go. And very unlucky, mate. It's a good call. Cornet across the season hasn't been the greatest statistically, but recently actually the numbers have been going up. But you know, these things can happen in FPL. It was my free hit, mate. That's why I took the risk. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Fair enough. And I actually probably wouldn't have done it myself. I probably would have gone for Bruno. And part of this is maybe a fault of mine. The last time I got Ronaldo in, I took a -4 to get Trossard and Ronaldo. Instead, it was Bruno that actually ended up getting like 20 plus points, and I would have captained him instead. I think it was for Son or Salah that I got rid of. And I've always been burned by that. So these 50-50 swings are massive. You know, if you went for Ronaldo that week, but then you went for Bruno this week, you are, you know, absolutely unlucky in a way. These things can happen though. That's football, that's FPL. But yeah, that's a really good call, mate, and fair play. Enjoy the points. And Ronaldo could still do something against Liverpool. He did score in the reverse fixture, but obviously he was offside. I mean, technically he wasn't offside, but they ruled it off. So let's wait and see. Thinking of doing Saka to Mount and Doherty to Emerson. I like the Saka to Mount move. As much as I still think Saka's a good option, Mason Mount is probably right now anyway, better option. And then you look at Doherty to Emerson, it's a like-for-like switch. I don't see anything wrong with it. Another player you could consider is Anderson from Crystal Palace, but yeah, I think Emerson's fine. So long as you're kind of resigned to the idea of not having triple Spurs attack, which to be fair, you don't need, then you can just go ahead with it. But Saka to Mount definitely looks good. Is it worth to bring United players for 34? Good question, and that's going to be the talk right now in terms of should we bring these players in. I personally don't think so. I don't think we need United players still. Of course, Ronaldo, amazing hat-trick. Bruno could still do pretty well in the next 3 games, basically, across the next 2 game weeks, but I just don't trust United enough. And you look at Telles, for example, he got an assist. Obviously, fair play to any of you who got him in as well, but I still don't like him as an option. United defensively are woeful. I thought they'd beat Norwich 2-1. They end up conceding 2, and now everyone wants to get Pookie. So, look, personally, I think maybe 1 United player is fine. I wouldn't double or triple up long term. Welcome, Daniel. Hi, Dylan. Would you go for Werner plus Foden or De Bruyne plus 4.5 million forward? Thank you for your question, Daniel. I think it ultimately depends because having a 4.5 million forward isn't necessarily so bad. So long as the rest of your squad is very strong and you have options on your bench from time to time, then I think it's worth going for De Bruyne and the 4.5 million mid. I definitely like that duo. Werner and Foden is better if you want these 2 options in your starting 11, of course. You don't want to be relying on a 4.5 million forward. He should just be sitting on your bench. So basically, if you have good squad depth, I'd go for De Bruyne and the 4.5 million forward. But Werner's an interesting option now, and he's maybe someone I didn't mention in my wildcard video today. Foden as well. I talked about him and De Bruyne. If you want to go for that City attacker, I think those 2 are probably the best ones. Mahrez is someone I like a lot. He just doesn't have those minutes. But yeah, that's pretty much the answer to your question, Daniel. I'd go for De Bruyne and the 4.5 million forward. Welcome, Singh. Would you keep Spurs on the wildcard? That's a good question. Maybe Havertz plus Mount plus James Rudiger with Villa assets for the double, planning to bench boost in 36. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I still would keep Spurs assets. In my wildcard video, I put 2 of them. I don't think you need to, but I would definitely go for at least 1, whether it's Kulusevski, Son or Kane. I still think they offer great value, especially in the case of Kulusevski and Son. So I would go for 1 of those midfielders. You don't necessarily need Kane though, as we discussed. You can go for Pookie, Tony, Mateta if his injury isn't too serious. So I think yes, I would still go for 1 or 2, but maybe I wouldn't go for the defenders. Despite the fact that Emerson's a good option, I don't think you need him. Yeah, I've gotten that before, Bobby. You look like Mason Mount. Thank you. I mean, I've gotten Werner shouts, Marco Reus, all sorts, David De Gea even, which, to be fair, I just don't see the comparisons, but fair enough. Not a wild card, but I had to do an early transfer as I have 0 million in the bank. That looks like a wildcard team, so that in itself shows. Just bear in mind, Hamza, Mateta's injury could be serious. He was taken off a bit early in the FA Cup, so just bear that in mind. But yes, that's a good team. You're in good shape. Salah might still smash. Ronaldo might have a hattie, but United was very poor. It's same old, really. Even against Spurs, I wouldn't say they were very poor against Spurs, but they were quite average. If it was probably a draw would have been a deserving result for both teams. Maybe Spurs could have nicked it. They were slightly the better team. Ronaldo was the difference, and the same thing goes there against Norwich. And Ronaldo's just that guy who can get the goals out of nowhere, and that's why he's one of the best. So, yeah, United, it's a bit of a kind of dichotomy because you could argue Ronaldo doesn't make those around him better, like Bruno, and it happens with Portugal as well, but he gets those goals that other players can't. So it's a bit of a kind of interesting dilemma for Ten Hag, who it looks like he's going to be confirmed as a United manager by Fabrizio Romano today. And yeah, that's going to be interesting. What is he going to do with Ronaldo? But I agree. I don't think United are that great. And despite how good Ronaldo was the other day, I don't think you necessarily need to bring him in. So for those of you that want to do a Kane to Ronaldo switch and vice versa, look, go for it. It's a double game week potentially, but I personally still wouldn't really go there. I still prefer Kane, despite what's happened in the last week or two. Should I captain Salah or Mount Gimmick 34? Great question. I think I would go for Mason Mount, although I will give that more thought throughout the week, look at more stats in detail. We could do a stats comparison right now, by the way, if you want. But Salah, of course, still has those underlying numbers. Despite the drop-off in returns, he's still a great option, and I think he will produce, whether it's against United, Everton, or maybe the week after against Newcastle. But I think Mason Mount, with that double, you probably have to back him a little bit more. So I personally would go for Mason Mount. And it's not because I look like him, according to some people. Mount or Havertz captain, I think I would just go for Mount. But it's very tricky. I think Havertz over the last 6 game weeks as a whole has been better. But you look specifically at the last 3 games in all competitions, and Mason Mount has scored in all of them and has looked very sharp. So it's very tight. I don't think you can go wrong with either, but I think I would go for Mount just about though. So Chim, welcome. Is Robbo plus Saka to James and Mount Havertz worth it? Already have Rudiger. I think it is worth it technically, but I still would be a bit hesitant about getting rid of Robertson. I don't have too many qualms about getting rid of Saka, but Robertson is for me probably the best defender over the last 10 game weeks or so, and I would try to keep him if possible. But those players you're bringing in are very good, and who would I prefer between Mount and Havertz? Probably Mason Mount. You already have Rudiger, fair enough. So yeah, double Chelsea defence and 1 midfielder, that's fine. I think in the long term that might arguably be better than 2 midfielders and 1 defender, but I don't like the possibilities of clean sheets in Gimmick 34 when you look at the games anyway on paper, but obviously football isn't played on paper. Either way, Chim, yes, I think it is worth it, but I'd be a bit hesitant about getting rid of Robertson. Welcome Singh, have De Gea, Rudiger, James. Don't know if I should wildcard 34 or 35. Good question. I think I would probably wildcard in 35, Singh, especially if the rest of your squad looks good, because if you're not really going to make too many changes anyway in 34, yeah, I'd probably just use in 35 if anything. Obviously, it's kind of a common thing to say, oh, wildcard 34, bench boost 36, for example, but you could always wildcard in 35 as well. I think there's nothing wrong with wildcarding in 34 as well, in your case, but I think I'd just do it in 35, do Saka to Mount as your free transfer. Thank you, Daniel. Much appreciated. Thank you for tuning in. And if you have any more questions, let me know. Welcome, Nicola. Share, Robertson, Cancelo, Rudiger, Barnes, Saka, Salah, Kulusevski, Foden and Kane. That is my team. 1 free transfer. I'm considering KDB instead of Salah and then Havertz or Mount instead of Barnes. I think that's actually a valid point. I definitely like Havertz or Mount instead of Barnes. I'd probably do it. Salah or KDB. KDB has been in better form, but I think I'd still keep Salah. But of course, you can't ignore those fixtures like Watford at home. KDB should be playing against Brighton very soon. We'll see what happens, but I think he'll be fit in time for that game. And I think he'll do very well against Watford. So that's a very valid point, Nicola. But definitely do Havertz or Mount in for Harvey Barnes. Right now I prefer Mount, but both of them are good options. Pedro or Dennis for Gimmick 36 bench boost. I think Dennis has still been the more consistent in terms of goal output, so I would go for him, but he's not really my favourite. As I said before, Mateta if fit, he's a better option in my opinion, at least on paper with the fixtures and also the team he plays for. You look at Harry Kane, Ivan Toney, Pukki, I think those are probably better strikers to have, but of course, Dennis is probably still maybe the 5th or 6th best forward option. Welcome, Karaki. My team is Schmeichel, 8 Nuri, Ben White, Emerson, James, Son, Maddison, Mount, Havertz, Saka, Kane, Lacazette, Weghorst. Do I start Weghorst or 8 Nuri? That's a good question. That's a good question. They are facing each other, so that is a bit of a conflict there, isn't it? I think maybe I would go for Weghorst, but it's 50-50, and maybe I'm influenced by the fact that he finally got a return there. But I don't really like Wolves over the last 6 to 8 game weeks. They haven't really been the same. That's why I would go for Weghorst and go for the attacker, but I'm not a big fan of either of them in this situation. Do you think Bruno starts against Liverpool after the crash? Apparently he was injured, unhurt, and he resumed training today, so I think he should start, and he'll be fine for that game. Obviously, it's good that he's all good. I believe he will start. Should I downgrade Kane to Son? It depends which players you're bringing out and bringing in. Obviously, I don't want to sit on the fence there, but I wouldn't just downgrade Kane to Son for the sake of it. If you can do a lot with that extra money, then go for it. I think it's worth it. But otherwise, don't force it. How old are you? I recently turned 23, but yeah, thank you. I've gotten a few of these kind of age questions before. And yeah, I mean, if I have no beard, for example, people think I'm 16. And when I have one, people think I'm 25 or 30. Mount or Werner captain? I think I'd go for Mason Mount just because of the consistency. However, Werner's form is pretty impressive. He's getting assists and goals left, right and centre. So yeah, I think that's pretty good as well. Alonso, if I can't afford James, yeah, I think that's definitely worth it. And this is an interesting discussion in terms of Reece James. So he has been playing as a right centre-back recently. Obviously, this is kind of Chelsea's way of counter-attacking against these pacey wingers like Vinicius Jr. and Zaha. They could do the same against Arsenal with Martinelli. And then you look at Manchester United, maybe whoever they put on their left-hand side, whether it's Alanga or Rashford, that could be the same thing. So if Reece James is going to be a right centre-back, do you really think it's worth an extra 0.8 million to go from Alonso to Reece James? Probably not anyway, so I think it's worth it, definitely. My preference is Rudiger, as I talked about in my wildcard team video, just because he's nailed and I don't really have any issues with him. Reece James, if he plays in that right wing-back spot, he's definitely the most explosive, but I do have concerns about whether he will do so. So yeah, Alonso is fine. Is he my favourite option long term? No, but I think he could actually cover James, and if not, actually outscore him. Do I do Sarr to Schmeichel this week or next week? Backup goalkeeper Ramsdale. Ooh, okay. I think that's a good question, by the way. I think I might. It depends how many transfers you have. So if you have 2 this week, definitely do it now. Otherwise, just do it next week. Maybe just keep Sarr for this week, because the thing is with Schmeichel, though, as well, actually, now thinking about it, Schmeichel plays Tottenham next week and he plays Aston Villa at home this week. So not really expecting a clean sheet in either of those games, but he's more likely against Aston Villa. So maybe it makes sense to do it this week, but either way, it doesn't really matter because Jose Sarr has as good of a chance of a clean sheet, if not better, in Gimmick 34 as well. So it's a tough one. I don't think it really matters anyway. As long as it doesn't affect your other transfers, Sen, I think you're all good and you can just do it this week, actually. Would you go White to Alonso or just go straight to Trent, -4? Good question. Yeah, so Jared, if you have no Liverpool cover, I would just do the Trent move for a -4 even. Otherwise, go Alonso. He's got that double this week, and then you can always bring Trent a few weeks after. But yeah, as long as you have someone like Robertson at least or Matip, then you should be fine anyway. You don't necessarily need Trent as much. Would you take a hit, Rudiger out to go for Mount or just go with what I've got? Already own Rudiger, Havertz, James. Personally, mate, I wouldn't, Ryan. I think Rudiger, if anything, is probably the best Chelsea player to own. Mason Mount is arguably joint top with him with the current form he's in. I wouldn't do it personally. Top 3 picks from Chelsea on a wildcard. Great question. I think it's between Rudiger, Mount, and I would probably say Havertz. So just like I said in my wildcard video, probably those 3. If you don't like the double Chelsea midfield, which is completely understandable, then what you could do is maybe replace Havertz with someone like Alonso or Reece James. But yeah, I think my top 3 would be those. Mason Mount, Havertz and Rudiger. With Rudiger or Mount being first, I can't decide which one yet, and Havertz probably being third. Cancelo is also my team. That's really good, obviously. I'm a bit jealous in a way. I'd love to get him in right now, but unfortunately I might not be able to, and instead I'm going to go for Chelsea players. But what I actually was considering potentially is going for Cancelo, Mason Mount, and then getting Gelhardt up front. So I'll talk about my transfer plans briefly later on, but I'll be doing transfer tips videos that should be coming out in the next few days, team selection, and much more. Wow, my rank is 340th. I haven't got a Chelsea F, so no wild card. Should I get Werner to Wood with free transfer or Kane, Gordon, Kilman to James, Mount, Werner with a -8? That's a really good rank, mate, and I think both options are valid, and I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong. Werner to Wood with a free transfer looks very enticing, actually. I do like that, but a -8 to then get James and Mount looks very good also. It's just I'm not a big fan of getting someone, get rid of someone like Harry Kane for a -8. That's my only issue there with those transfers. Otherwise, I think it's definitely worth it getting rid of Kilman and Gordon. I think in your situation, it makes more sense to just do the free transfer and not go too much, taking so many risks with the -8. But if it was my situation, around 50k, I could still maybe push up a little bit more, be a bit more, let's say, ambitious or risky, let's say, then I would go for the -8. But in your situation, mate, I think I would just go a bit safe and go for the free transfer, if that makes any sense. Let me know what your thoughts are currently. Can't afford Trent or Robertson. Who would you pick between Van Dijk and Matip? Must have a Liverpool defender. The thing is, if Matip is going to be nailed in the league and is Konate playing in the Cups, FA Cup and Champions League, then, well, FA Cup they just won actually. I say just won. They're going to win it in my opinion. But yeah, I think I would go for Matip. The problem is I'm just not too sure, and also his ability to play 2 games in the space of a few days, like Gimmick 36. I'd just go for Van Dijk and the safety and the security, because you never know. It could be Matip one day playing in the Champions League and then Konate plays in the Premier League and it ruins your plans. I think Matip is a good option, by the way. It's just, I would go for Van Dijk probably. Is triple Chelsea worth a -12? Once again, just like I said to WAP, it depends on the players you're bringing out as well. But I would try not to go for a -12 if possible. Ronaldo and Tellers were the only two return on my free hit team, currently on 58 points and jumped from 69k to 32k. I mean, this is the thing though, even if it was only 2 players returning, I mean, look at how well Ronaldo did, and those who captained him as well, even more so. You pretty much halved your rank. That's really impressive stuff, and even though the free hit didn't look too appealing, I mean, if you look at how it's such a low scoring week, the fact you got Ronaldo in on the free hit, you don't need to worry about him in the future. It's a pretty good call, to be honest, and I still wasn't really considering the free hit, so fair play, mate. That's a really good play, and hopefully you get even more points. Should I wildcard this game week? I'm not sure what your team situation is, so maybe Game Week 35 would be a better time to wildcard, but yeah, I think if you don't have any Chelsea players, now would be a good time to wildcard. Jota's been impressive. Is he a must to buy, sell, and remain in your squad for the rest of the season? It's a great question. This is my problem with Jota. It's the minutes. Otherwise, I think he's a great option. You could actually cover Salah with Diego Jota and spend the rest of your money on the likes of Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, the premium defenders, Mason Mount, etc. But yeah, I think he is impressive. If you have him, I would hold on to him. Would I be looking to buy him in right now? I personally would say no, despite how good he's been and he's produced in the last 3 games. It's just I'm not too sure if he's going to start every single game. And if he does start, is he going to get 60 minutes? Because against Arsenal, for example, he got taken off around 54 minutes. So that would be a bit of a concern for me. But of course, Jota's a great option. And it's just a shame in a way that Diaz was signed, because otherwise Jota would still be in my team right now. Welcome, Hassan. Rate my team for Gimmick 34, 0.6 million and 1 transfer. Dubravka, James, Cancelo, Robertson, Mount, Kulusevski, Saka, Salah, Barnes, Mateta and Kane. My bench is Justin, Broja, White and Pope. That's a very solid team. If you want a rating per se, I'd probably say, let's see how many Chelsea players you have. You've got James, Mount. Yeah, so you've got 2 Chelsea players already. It's an 8 or a 9 out of 10. I think the only way you could really improve it is getting another Chelsea player, which you don't necessarily need to have. Barnes is off form. I still think he's a good option until the end of the season if he can get his form back, but it is a bit concerning. Mateta, hopefully it's nothing serious, but he obviously came off early against Chelsea, so that would be a bit of a concern. But you've got a good team and you've got decent squad depth. Got 2 transfers saved. Don't know whether to wildcard 34 or 35. You're going to bench boost in 36. So Random Junkie, if you already have 1 or 2 Chelsea players, I would save the wildcard and use your free transfers. Be very explosive. Be a very, let's say, ambitious, and also take some risks and maybe go for some more Chelsea players. Otherwise, if you have no Chelsea players at all, just wildcard now, basically. Best Saka replacements. Mason Mount, Kai Havertz would be up there. I still think James Maddison will be a really good substitution for him. Kulusevski. Anyone else, really? There are plenty of options, Zaha even. But other than that, I think you're really looking at the kind of more expensive players like Son, Kevin De Bruyne, Jota, etc. Obviously, Mount and Havertz are similar to Jota anyway. But yeah, any of those midfielders, Phil Foden as well, would be good replacements. Yeah, I agree, Brandon. I think Mount is a good option. Is it worth going Rudiger to James for the rest of the season? I personally wouldn't do it. Normally, yes, because of the upside. But if Reece James is going to play as a right centre-back against teams with pacey wingers, with trickery, like they did against Real Madrid with Vinicius, maybe they'll do it against Arsenal with Martinelli, the same with Manchester United. So I'm not too sure about that. Against West Ham, maybe that will be the case. But Ruben Loftus-Cheek is playing well as the right wing-back. He scored against Crystal Palace. So I personally wouldn't do it, especially for a hit. I don't think it's worth it. Are there any budget options on the 6 million in the Chelsea midfield? I need to replace either Kulusevski, Saka or Barnes, and the budget is almost 0. I mean, the thing with a Jorginho punt, you're relying on penalties really, and maybe the odd assist, like that great one he produced for Tammy Abraham a few years ago against Watford. Other than that, you're not really going to get too much out of him in most cases. Obviously, FPL and football is a funny game. Anything can happen. Maybe Jorginho outscores everyone else. You never know in football. But in FPL, I wouldn't really recommend Jorginho. It's an UCL fantasy where I'd be a bit more, let's say, forgiving. And even then, Jorginho isn't as nailed as he once was. So I personally wouldn't do it. And those players you're getting rid of, potentially, Kulusevski, Saka or Barnes, are still better options in the long term, despite not having a double game week this week. So for me, no. Should I have Ronaldo on the wildcard and next week bring Kane in? If you're kind of committed to having one premium striker, then yes, go for it. but I definitely wouldn't have Ronaldo beyond Game Week 34, and that's why I talked about skipping him in Game Week 33. Obviously, he produced a hat-trick, that's the player he is, and it's always going to happen, but yeah, that's the only way I'd do it. And you could even go for a wildcard team without a premium striker, like I did in my best wildcard team video today. You don't need a premium striker, despite how good Kane is, and despite how good Ronaldo can be. Son to Bruno versus Saka to Mount. Oh, great question. Son to Bruno versus... Yeah, I wouldn't do Son to Bruno. I just don't think it's worth it. I still think Son's a far better option. Bruno could still produce, even against Liverpool or in the next double, but I would rather have Son until the end of the season. So Saka to Mount is the better choice in my opinion, Singh. Yeah, Jorginho hasn't played in quite a while. It's a problem, you know. His minutes are a problem as well, and you have to rely a lot on penalties for him to get returns, in my opinion. So yeah, we're kind of getting a bit behind. I'll try to go through these questions as well, but thank you to everyone who's decided to tune in today, and kind of short notice. If you haven't already, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. It really helps out the channel. I'll show you how my team lines up very shortly, but kind of a brief recap, and I'll talk about this in my team selection. Ramsdale, disappointing again, 2 points. What is happening with Arsenal right now? It's absolutely unbelievable. I expected Spurs to finish 4th, even after Arsenal beat Aston Villa, but I didn't expect them to get 0 points of the next 9 available. That is absolutely shocking. Fabian Schär, my new signing, with 2 points, but maybe against Crystal Palace he can produce something, and I'd be very happy with that. Robertson and Trent are yet to play against Manchester United. The same goes for Mohamed Salah, my captain, which wasn't a very popular choice amongst content creators, amongst the YouTube and Twitter community, but I just went with him. I didn't like the rest of my options, including Bukayo Saka, who could still do well against Chelsea, but Arsenal just aren't at it, and Saka had a glorious chance. He should have buried it. He made Forster should I say, look even better than he is. Obviously he had a good performance, by the way, but I think a lot of the saves he made were pretty much down to poor finishing from Arsenal. Heung-min Son with a blank, and Samuel Kulusevski, who was lucky to still be on the pitch, to be fair. Weghorst, my start of the show, if you can even say that, of the week. Weghorst with 8 points, a goal, 3 bonus points, and a yellow card, so very happy with him. Che Adams hasn't played a single minute, but I would expect him to come on against Burnley. Maybe Southampton will go back to a back 4, or change things up a little bit, because against Arsenal they specifically changed things up, put a back 5, took out Che Adams, and were more defensive. And then you've got Broja with a yellow card against Arsenal as well. So very disappointing week, but still only a small red arrow. Those of you who free hitted and got Ronaldo in, fair play. The captain is of course Bruno Guimaraes. I did not expect that. He's got like 11 goals throughout his career in the league, and he scored twice. But obviously in recent games he has been more adventurous and has looked more dangerous, but still you wouldn't expect him to score a brace against Leicester. Yet these things can happen. That's FPL for you. And now let me show you my team. As things stand without transfers, I've got 2 available, and I'm looking to bring in some Chelsea players and possibly Cancelo. That would definitely be the ideal scenario. But because of Weghorst's performance in Game Week 33, Che Adams being benched, I'm more inclined to keep Weghorst and get rid of Che Adams now. And he also saves me a bit more money in order to make the other moves that I want to make. So that's kind of a brief rundown. We'll talk about this more in the team selection video. Rate my team, says Royal. That's a good team, solid. I'm not sure if it's a wild card or not. But yeah, Foster as a second goalkeeper is fine. You don't need 2 goalkeepers right now. Schmeichel isn't, let's say, the best option in the world. But looking at all the goalkeepers from now until the end of the season, he's got the most games, good fixtures. So he's probably the pick of the bunch, really. It's unfortunate that Sarr and Ramsdale, who were looking really good at the beginning, are suddenly not really good options anymore. Your defence is very good. I like it a lot. You're really big at the back. Your midfield is also pretty solid, and your attack is as good as it needs to be, really. My preference in the forward line is Mateta, having someone like Tony maybe, and also, I'm forgetting the names now, aren't I? Harry Kane, of course, but you've already got the midfield and defence really to compensate. And the other striker that I'm forgetting right now, I mean, how can I even forget Pukki? He's probably a better option than Watkins and Dennis, but because you have Watkins, you might as well keep him, because he's going to have good fixtures from now until the end of the season and 2 more doubles. So to be honest, mate, your team is in good shape. You don't really need to make many, if any, transfers at the moment. So if you have 1 free transfer, I'd probably roll this week. Mount or Havertz, right now I'd slightly lean towards Mount, but both are good options. Pickford or Foster for the rest of the season as a backup goalkeeper. Honestly, mate, I'd still go for Foster. I'm still not a big fan of Pickford. Any doubles in Gimmick 35? No. None at all. The only one that could have gone into Game Week 35 really is Crystal Palace. But yeah, right now, no doubles in 35. The big double, of course, is in 36. And Game Week 37 has plenty of doubles as well. Let's keep an eye on the Liverpool game. Their game in Game Week 37 against Southampton, I think it is. Maybe it's going to move into another week, but otherwise it could just maybe move into the same kind of midweek in 37. So yeah, we'll wait and see. But right now, no doubles in 35. Best free Chelsea assets, yeah. Once again, I think I would just say Rudiger, Mount and Havertz in my opinion. But it's very close between those kind of 6 players that you mentioned there. So they're all good, but I think I'd go for those top 3. So yeah. Thank you, WAP. I think I'll captain Kane. Keep Kane for captaincy in 35. Yes, against Leicester, I believe it is. I think that's a good option. Even in 36, though, he's a good option there as well. Despite the double being pretty poor on paper, I can see him scoring a brace against Arsenal, or at least getting a few assists. I think Diaz is in the first choice front 3. Yeah, might just take a punt for the double. Robertson won't start against Villa with the FA Cup final so close. Yeah, that's a valid point. That's the thing. And Tsimikas, whenever he's come in, has done a brilliant job. I mean, look at the Champions League as well, for example. In the first leg, Robertson got an assist for Konate from a set piece. Tsimikas does the exact same thing, and Konate scores an identical goal in the second leg. So, yeah, I can see that happening as well. As for Diaz being first choice, yes, I agree. Him, Mane, and Salah is the kind of ideal front 3 for Klopp at the moment. But Jota's been great as well. Planning on switching Saka to Havertz, I think that's a good move, DP. Honestly, if not Mason Mount. Who are the best bench boost cheap players for Game Week 36? Wildcard in 34. Very good question. So I'm going to have a look at the 36 fixtures just to kind of recap and highlight the options for you. We can do predictions, by the way, for the games that are yet to be played in Game Week 33. But let's go to 36. I think Pukki up front is the kind of ideal, cheap, yet reliable option for a bench boost. I think he's a great choice. He's probably the best forward that has a double in 36 alongside Harry Kane. Who else would I really recommend? I think Dewsbury Hall as a 5th midfielder could be decent. Kasper Schmeichel still. He could be your first or second goalkeeper. In most cases, he'd be your first, really. Other than that, I think Aston Villa, maybe Matty Cash. He's the one I'd mainly look at, and I'll talk about him in future videos as well. Who else would I really go for? So midfield, attack. I'm probably forgetting a few names right now. Obviously, if anyone has any ideas, then let me know in the chat. But yeah, I think those are pretty good options already. Is there anyone else? I mean, Watford asset, maybe you could go for Dennis as a forward, maybe. Foster as well. I mean, not too bad. Palace away and Everton at home. It's not the worst set of fixtures. You could maybe get a few save points or something. So yeah, those are the sort of players I'd really look at. Gelhardt, not so much really, and I'm probably planning to get him as well just to fund the other moves. But yeah, I think those are pretty good options as well for the kind of bench boost you're looking for. Any Leeds players I'd recommend? Probably not. Maybe Rafinha, but even then he's a kind of over 6 million. So in terms of pure bench fodder or cheap options, it's probably those that I just mentioned really. And Pukki, to be fair, should probably be starting most weeks. Let's see. All right, so let me try to get through these questions. I'm kind of far behind now. So yeah, thank you very much for the turnout. It's much appreciated. I'm going to go back and show you my team and kind of whiz through these. So do you think Laporte is still nailed with Diaz coming back? I was asked this, I think, the other day, and I still think he is relatively nailed. The thing is, though, Stones has now been fit for a long time, so there is a possibility that Laporte won't play every single game, especially with the Champions League. But I personally think he will still be relatively nailed and play the majority of games. And if anything, it's been Diaz who hasn't always played, which is a bit surprising. Who do you think is getting top 4 this season? The same as before. I think Spurs. I think United are finishing above Arsenal because I just don't see where Arsenal are going to get their wins from. They can't score a goal. And I don't know if you have seen the stat, but from Arsenal's last, if I'm not mistaken, 73 shots, they've scored 2 goals. That is unbelievably bad. And then their main striker has had, 4 shots since December? Or Christmas, maybe it was. That is just embarrassing. I mean, Arsenal don't have any prolific goal scorers, and their main, or should I say the highest scorers this season are Smith Rowe and Saka with 9 in the Premier League. That's just not enough to get top 4. And I think Arsenal will even struggle to finish above West Ham, and that's not me overreacting. I generally think that, I mean, look at the next 3 games, for example, West Ham, United and Chelsea. I'll be honest, I don't think they're particularly great teams. Chelsea are the best of the lot by far, but I don't see Arsenal getting many points there. Maybe a point, maybe 3 points, maybe that's me being optimistic. Ramsdale to Mendy, James Ward-Prowse to Mount Captain, Salah to City mid, worth the -8? Yes, I think it is, but if you don't need to do Salah to De Bruyne, for example, or Foden, and you can just make the other moves without needing the extra funds, then I would just take a -4 and do those instead. Saka to Liverpool midfielder, Gimmick 34, yes, and I'd probably say Jota or Diaz would be the way to go. No Chelsea players, so Wildcard now seems like a better option, yes. Worth getting in a Man United player or two? Yes, it might be worth getting one. Maybe a Bruno, a Ronaldo, but honestly, I wouldn't go for 2 or 3. I am 0.1 million off Saka to Mount. Well, it seems like a Wildcard 34 now. Yeah, that's very frustrating. I think it is maybe worth it. But if you already have a few kind of Chelsea players, it's not absolutely, essential, let's say. Any Spurs defenders on your radar? Just Emerson Royal, really. And even then, I don't think you necessarily need him. Good fixtures until the end of the season. But I'd expect Spurs to score goals, but not necessarily keep clean sheets in that run-in, if you get my drift. But yeah, for example, games like Brentford, which are kind of ranked favourably in the FDR, maybe Brentford will still score though. Even if Spurs win 3-1 or 3-2 or 2-1, I just don't know if Emerson is really the greatest option. If Doherty was still fit, I think he would be very good because of his attacking threat. Emerson still has a bit of that, but nowhere near the level of Doherty. So yeah, it's just Emerson Royal really. Should I sell Sancho and Doherty for Mount and Alonso, or Sancho and Saka to Mount and Havertz? Great question. I think it would have to be Sancho and Doherty for Mount and Alonso. Because Doherty's out for the rest of the season, and you cover Chelsea's defence and attack that way. Lacazette and Barnes out for Pukki and Mount. Yes, I think that's worth it, Hesham. Yes, definitely. Sad news. I'm guessing that was from the Bruno Fernandes car crash I mentioned earlier, but he's all good, which is very good to hear. I think it's time to get rid of all Arsenal players in the team. No, I agree. I don't see them getting points. I think Saka's still a decent option, but even Ramsdale, look how good he was in the first half of the season. And not just FPL-wise, even, he's conceding so many goals. From Arsenal's last 14 shots, Arsenal have conceded 8 goals. And it's partly to do with Ramsdale. He hasn't been great, let's be real. But also, Arsenal just look fragile. And they go a goal down, and you already know they're going to lose. That's kind of the way they're at that moment. Yeah, Force and Bruno Guimaraes, look, he's someone I wanted at Arsenal, really, from last summer and in January. They bottled it as usual. As an FPL option, obviously he just produced a brace. Fair play to anyone who got him in. I'm still not convinced, but of course, look, you have to be open-minded. He doesn't have a great goal-scoring record throughout his career, but the thing is, he still is a bit of an all-rounder. He's not just a defensive midfielder per se. He's kind of box-to-box, especially at Newcastle. And look, I think he's someone to consider to keep an eye on, but would I now bring him in just because he scored a brace last week? No. He's not going to do it every single week, in my opinion. And there are still a lot of midfielders who have doubles in 34, like the Chelsea options. You've got Maddison long-term. So is there really a spot for Bruno? Maybe. Maybe in terms of your structure, you have kind of a cheap fifth midfielder. But otherwise, just keep an eye on him, see how it develops. If he shows this consistency or threat, then definitely I'd be keeping an eye on him. But the underlying numbers are still not that great. But definitely, look, no mug scores a brace in the Premier League. Let's put it that way. Sell Rafinha or Saka for a Chelsea midfielder? I'd still probably sell Rafinha. Despite the fact that Rafinha might outscore him in 34, I'm not sure if that will be the case until the end of the season. Saka still has a decent double, at least compared to Rafinha. So, yes, I'd probably sell Rafinha. Arsenal played well, but they desperately need a finisher. Okay, I don't think Arsenal played poorly. They obviously had a lot of shots. They had chances like the Saka one. But yes, they desperately need a finisher. But the thing is, even the likes of Saka, for example, who have been prolific, well, not even prolific, they have been decent with a goal output this season. They should be finishing those chances. Having said that, though, Arsenal are fragile. And, they're conceding pretty stupid goals, let's say. And they're not scoring easy chances. And they don't create enough, in my opinion, anyway, still. So I think in terms of big chances created, they're 16th in the league, which is very, very poor. So I maybe think the run that they went on kind of covered over the cracks. Even games like against Watford, where they won 3-2, they were very poor on the day and could easily have lost. How many premium defenders, midfielders, forwards would you think is essential? Honestly, forwards, 1 max. You definitely don't want to go for 2. Despite how good Kane and Ronaldo can be, I wouldn't go for both of them. Midfielders, I'd say 2. So maybe Salah or De Bruyne and Son. You know, kind of having 2 of those lot. There's always others to consider as well. Defenders, I think 3 or 4. You don't need 5. You don't need Cancelo, Robertson, Trent, Reece James and Rudiger. But 3 or 4 of those would be fair enough. So that's the kind of way I'd go about it. 3 or 4 defenders, let's say 2 midfielders and 1 forward max. You don't even need a premium forward, despite how good Kane is. I agree, Savio. Yeah, Arsenal are on a void for the rest of the season, or at best only Martinelli. I mean, look at the next 3 fixtures. You just don't know where the points are going to come from, not just FPL-wise, but also in the Premier League table. Arsenal are looking shocking right now. My sell players are Gabriel, Lacazette, Barnes, Roberts from Burnley, Share, Pope. 1 free transfer. Well, I wouldn't sell Share this week, despite Norwich being decent offensively, especially with Pukki. But the rest I agree with. And who would you sell for which Chelsea players? Maybe Lacazette to Werner could be something to consider. You don't really have like a midfielder to move to Mason Mount and Havertz, which is my kind of preference. But let's say, for example, Roberts. Roberts or Gabriel, you can move on to Rudiger or Reece James. I think that's the way I'd go about it. All right, let me just show you something very quickly, by the way, and then we'll go through some chats. By the way, thank you for the super chat. I'm going to read out very shortly. So let me show you the predicted points. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back very soon. So check this out and let me know what you think of this. Who do you think is going to be the highest scoring player in Gimmick 34? Apologies for that. Probably allergies or something like that. But here we go. De Bruyne is the highest scoring predicted player anyway in Gimmick 34. Rudiger, Mount, Fernandes, Havertz all make the top 5. Then you've got Ronaldo, Chalobah, Azpilicueta, Mendy, Sancho all making up the top 10 pretty much. And then Ziyech, Alonso, pretty much a Chelsea-centric list. You also have a few United players. Foden, Salah, Mane. So as you can see from the kind of single game weekers, Foden is actually the highest, Salah second, unless I've missed someone at the very top. No, they're all double game week as well. De Bruyne, yeah. De Bruyne is kind of in his own stratosphere there. So De Bruyne, Foden and Salah, top 3 single game week players this week. To be fair, that's a pretty good list actually. And this looks pretty solid. Cancelo, one of the highest scoring defenders according to this model. So yeah, there you go. Even Lukaku's up there, but is he even going to get too many minutes? Who knows at this point, but that's what Fantasy Football Hub predict in terms of predicted points. And we'll also take a look quickly at the price changes. Not much to really report on Bruno. Everyone's on the hype now, but not Bruno Fernandes. We're talking about the Newcastle one. And then, even Werner. Who would have thought at the beginning of the season that we're going to be clamouring for him? But he's shown some good form. In terms of price falls, you've got Lacazette, Coutinho, Ben Mee, the player manager for Burnley. Unbelievable. The rest is kind of not really too interesting. So we're going to go back to your questions. Thank you very much for your patience. And let me just go through the super chat. So thank you very much to Henry. Thank you very much, mate. You're a legend. Hi, stuck between Son plus Werner or Kane plus Mount Havertz. It's a really interesting one. I personally would go for Kane and Mount. That would be my ideal duo, but all of them look pretty solid, whether you go for Havertz and Kane or for Son and Werner. They all look pretty good. Son and Werner is the most differential of the lot, but I think I'd still go for Kane and Mount. I think they're just a more consistent duo of the kind of 2 there. Son is my favourite option out of the lot, but then again, Kane is good structurally for your team. So yes, it has to be Kane and Mount for me. Havertz isn't a bad option either, so take your pick there between Mount and Havertz. But I definitely would go for the second duo there. Thank you, Henry, for the super chat. Much appreciated. I'll try to get through the questions that I wasn't able to go through earlier. So we'll kind of whiz through these here. So say Maximan to Pukki. Yes, Anxi Raya. I think I'd definitely go ahead with that, mate. Veikos to Pukki as the second striker till Gimmick 37. Definitely, mate. And I was actually looking to do something similar. Now I'm looking to do Adams instead to Pukki. So let me go through FPL.team actually. And then we'll whiz through the questions hopefully. So bear with me for a second. I'll talk about this in depth in the team selection. But this is what I could do with my 2 free transfers. I could get Rudiger and Mason Mount But in order to do that, I need to find some money, and I could do Che Adams to Gelhardt, and then that would enable me to get Mason Mount in for Rafinha and Rudiger in for Doherty. And how much would I have left in the bank? 0.5 million, and this would be for a -4 hit. Free transfers, using my 2 free transfers and then an additional one. And then the alternative really is to maybe not go overboard on Chelsea, get someone like Mason Mount and captain him, and he would also come in for Rafinha. And the other move would be Che Adams to Timo Pukki. And how much money would I have left in the bank? 0.7. So let me know, which one do you prefer? I might put a poll out here so you guys can vote and let me know your thoughts. It's really interesting to see what you guys think. Sometimes you know better than I do. So, that's the way it goes. No one has all the answers. Definitely not. So I'll put a poll out very quickly and then I'm going to whiz through your questions. So try to be patient. Obviously, I appreciate a lot of you have been. And there's no spamming, which is great to see, and some very thought-provoking questions and some very interesting comments being made. So thank you very much. I'm going to try to phrase this in the best possible way. Which transfers are better? Or, I'm not even sure I have enough characters, but I'll try to see what happens. So, triple Chelsea, -4 hit, and then here we go. Okay, I think this is kind of a rough overview basically. So which transfers are better? Triple Chelsea -4 hit or double Chelsea plus Pukki 2 free transfers? What I'm going to do, and I'd recommend this as well, if you're kind of stuck between different transfer plans, go to fpl.team, create some drafts, save them, and then what you can do is click on drafts and then compare them. So we're now going to change screen quickly, and here we go. So Chelsea compared to Pukki, and what you see in the poll is basically what you see on screen. So on the left hand side is the Chelsea triple up with a -4 hit, and on the right hand side you see double Chelsea with Timo Pukki coming in instead. And to be honest, I want to get Pukki in anyway, whether it's now or next week pretty much. So let's try to whiz through these, by the way. So thank you very much. I appreciate all the support as always. So let's do this. So who should I bench, Odegaard or Tony? Honestly, I'd actually bench Odegaard. I'd play Tony. Welcome, Abhishek. Best game week for a free hit, 37. Especially if you wildcard in 34 and you do something similar to what I did in my best wildcard team video, I'd definitely free hit in 37. Yep, Norgard, impressive Brentford player. True, he's been scoring quite consistently recently, even against the likes of Chelsea, against Watford. He's been pretty good, so that's a really good shout. I think in Sky Fantasy Football, more than anything, he's a good option. Is Alonso a good choice? I think he is, to be fair. And if Reece James is going to play as a right centre-back again, and obviously it's a bit of a tactical thing, he's not always going to play as a right centre-back, but if it's going to remain the case in the next few games, then you might as well go for Alonso. Chances of City double in 36, I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure about a percentage. Some people think that it's more likely in 37, whilst others think it's going to go into Gimmick 36, and obviously it's going to be one of those. I would have thought it would be Gimmick 37, and that's ideal for those that are going to be free hitting in 37. It doesn't really do us many favours if they double in 36, because then we'll probably try to get 2 or 3 City players in, and you already probably have 8+ double game week players, so it's not ideal. You would rather City double in 37, so I'm not sure exactly about the percentages of a double in 36. Yes, Gordon has a double in 36, 37. Yeah, he's a good option for the bench boost, for example. Can you make a wildcard team for bench boosters for 36? I mean, this is the thing. That's a good point, because the wildcard team I made in 34 is ideal for someone who has the free hit available in 37. Maybe for the bench boost, you could change things up a little bit more. I mean, to be fair, you look at the team I assembled, and it's not too bad, because I think we have 2 Palace players with a decent fixture in 36. You've got Foster, who's got a double, and then you have Gelhardt, who also has a double. So it's not the worst bench boost in the world, but you could maybe improve it a little bit more. And what you could do is go for Gordon as your 5th midfielder and change things up a little bit that way. So yeah, that's a good point. I'll try to go through that very shortly, actually. So remind me later on if you can. Triple Chelsea, double Chelsea defence. Yes, I think in my case it would be a triple up in this way. The reason why I wouldn't go for Havertz is because I like Son, Kulusevski, Salah. I don't want to get rid of them. For my team, it makes more sense to go for 2 Chelsea defenders. And to be fair, there's not much of a difference in terms of double Chelsea defence and double Chelsea attack. But I think in 34 specifically, the double midfield would be superior. But there's always, 2 sides to one coin. Should I go for Alonso or James? I'd still maybe lean towards James, but if he's going to play as a right centre-back, I don't think there is a big difference. And to be fair, even Alonso might be better. James, Havertz and Alonso, or James, Havertz and Werner? James, Havertz and Alonso for me, mate. Mohammed, yes. Werner or Dennis? Werner or Dennis? Well, the previous question you said was, yeah, and I went for the first trio, so it would probably be Dennis, just for the extra value saved. You obviously can't have Werner and the triple up I recommended. Welcome, Clyde. Raya or Foster? To be fair, Brentford have been pretty decent, but it depends. I think you don't necessarily need a second goalkeeper, but if you have enough money and it doesn't jeopardize the rest of your squad, then I'd go for Raya. Yeah, Abhishek, I'd go for Gimmick 37. Yeah, and just like Brandon said. Gallagher and Dennis or Werner and Dewsbury Hall? Good question. I think I would go for... I'd go for Werner and Dewsbury Hall because Gallagher hasn't been the same recently, and now as soon as I say that, he'll score a brace or something. Would you sell Saka or Maddison for Mount? I'd actually sell Saka. I'd rather have Maddison long term. My only concern with Leicester players is the rotation with the Europa Conference League. I'll check that Twitter out in a second. Hopefully it's nothing too serious or whatever. But yeah, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. It really helps out the channel. So thank you very much. And we're going to go through this as well. So yeah, let's see what you're on about. Genius Game, I think it was, who's mentioned that as well. So we'll check that very quickly and see what it is. Okay, that's not what I wanted. All right, there we go. Wait, what? No way. Are you serious? Damn, that I didn't know that. Well, thank you for pointing out. Jesus, yeah, I didn't know that. Condolences go out to him, of course, and that is one of the worst things that can happen to you, to be honest. So, yeah, I did not expect that. Wow. Damn, yeah. Well, we're going to try to go through the comments, but yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Best Bro replacement? I think I would still go for Mateta if he's fully fit. Yeah. Thank you, Manish. Yeah, I'll be honest, that caught me by surprise. I was not expecting that. Should I go for Alonso or James? I think I'd rather go for James, like I already told you before, Rafik. Thank you for the super chat. Oh, sorry, I'm that far behind that. Yeah, no, sorry, I already read through that super chat. So let me just kind of just skim through these. Kane or Salah captain? I think I'll go for Salah this week. Doherty to Christensen? I personally wouldn't go there. I'd rather just spend a bit more on Rudiger and Reece James, Alonso, etc. Clyde says, thinking of wildcarding to Schmeichel, Trent, Thiago Silva, Alonso, Havertz, KDB, Salah, Dewsbury Hall, Kane, Pookie, Simicast, Norman, Gelhardt. That's a good team, to be fair. I'm guessing your bench is pretty much full of bench fodder, and I understand that, but I would recommend having a few better options on the bench. Of course, it's hard to get KDB, Salah, Kane, and the defence you have, with a good bench. But I would maybe change things up a little bit more. Maybe go without one of those premiums like KDB, Salah or Kane. Take your pick there. But I do like the idea of having all three. It's just not at the detriment of the rest of your squad depth. And also, I do prefer Rudiger and a few others over Thiago Silva. You could even consider, you've already got Alonso, to be fair, but I think I would rather go for Rudiger instead of Thiago Silva. It's a good team, though. It's a very solid 11. I'm just a bit concerned about your bench. I've chosen Kane over Ronaldo in my free hit because Ronaldo's been disappointing so many times. No, that makes sense. And to be honest, I did it the same, my best free hit team video. But that's the quality of a player like Ronaldo. And to be fair, Brighton can be a very tough team to play against. If Salah blanks against Manchester United, should we still keep him or swap? That's a good point. Look, if Salah blanks against United, for example, then he's just not been showing form for a long time now. And then when is the cut-off point? Because he could have good underlying numbers, but you need returns, and that's how you're going to get the points. So, yeah, I think there's definitely a debate. You can go to Kevin De Bruyne, for example, or just go for Son and Kane and go that way. But honestly, I think he's going to score against United. Let's wait and see what happens. But it's a tough one. I think I'd still keep him, but I don't think it's necessarily wrong to sell him after yet another blank. Thank you, Bader. Thank you very much. And Never Give Up says Havertz. Screwed Beast says Mount. Okay, fair enough. Do you think Cash, Ramsey, Holgate and Foster are a good bench for Gimmick 36 bench boost? I think it's pretty decent, especially Cash. Yeah, I like Cash and Ramsey even, and Foster. Holgate, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Everton to be fair, but that's a good bench, yes. Will Chalobah even play? Maybe one of the two. I'm just not too sure. That's the thing. I wouldn't go for him. De Bruyne for differential over Salah. Have to try something different. If you think De Bruyne is going to outscore him, then yes, I would go for it. But don't just be different for the sake of being different, basically. That would be my advice. Trying so hard to get KDB into my wildcard, really hard. Okay to do Foden instead? I think there's a huge difference between the two, but then you have to look at value and what you can do with the rest of that money. And if you can improve the rest of your squad drastically, then I would just go for Foden and it would be okay. Best triple captain and when? Mount. If I still had the triple captaincy remaining, I would probably use it now on a Chelsea player or maybe on a City player if they double in 37. And the alternative would be 36 if you don't use a chip there. Which, to be fair, I'm not going to use a chip. I've only got the free hit anyway. But let's say, for example, you don't have the bench boost. Then you could triple captain Salah or Kane or someone else in 36. Yeah, the kits is basically FPL away kits Chrome extension. That's basically it. Nothing too fancy. Do you think I should do Kulusevski, Weghorst to Dewsbury Hall, Werner? Honestly, mate, I wouldn't do that, Chosen Onion. What a name, by the way. Havertz for Rafinha and Mateta for Dennis -4. Yes, I think so. But Steve, wait until the press conferences. You never know. Mateta came off injured in the FA Cup semi-final, so let's wait and see. Opinion on loading up on players who double in both 36 and 37. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of those teams that are doubling in both game weeks. I like Leicester. The problem with them is the rotation. Aston Villa, I only really like Matty Cash. Coutinho, once he's in form, he's a good option too. But yeah, this is why I like the free hit in 37, because a lot of those teams I would want for that game week specifically, and that's it. So that's kind of my opinion on it. 35 points on the free hit, 10 players to go, W or L. I mean, you probably gained quite a bit of a rank rise from it. So I'd say so far it's pretty decent. I think if you have, the likes of Bruno, and I'm talking about the Newcastle one, by the way, and Ronaldo, then yes, I think it's a W pretty much. And 35 points is decent, even on a free hit so far, considering how low scoring of a week it is. Should I go? Yeah, Rafik already answered that question, mate. Safes replacements, I have 0 in the bank. Emerson, Real, Elliott, or Anderson, I think would be at the top of your list. Yeah, fair enough. I can understand that random. And to be fair, if Reece James plays in his normal position as a right wing back, then he is more explosive than Rudiger and is the better pick on paper. Let's see how far behind I am, by the way. Okay, now we're kind of catching up now. That's just pretty good. Currently 11k overall, relying on Madison Captain to get me into the top 10k. Good luck with that random, and that's a really good rank, to be fair. Even if you've gone down in recent weeks, that's a great rank. So keep your head up. Triple Chelsea has a much higher upside, but if you plan to go for Pukki anyway, then 2 free transfers seems better. That's a really good summary, to be fair. And right now, Pukki is winning 54%, less than 100 votes, basically. So obviously, that might change, the more votes, obviously. And it's a pretty tough call, to be fair. That's something I'm going to think about throughout the rest of the week. And I'm going to talk about my kind of logic and reasoning behind both sets of transfers in my team selection. So yeah, that'll be a pretty interesting one as well. Should I bring in Havertz for KDB or take a -4 hit to bring in Werner? Honestly, I would not bring in Havertz for Kevin De Bruyne this week. As much as Havertz has a really good upside, so does De Bruyne in a single game week. So I'd probably take the -4 and bring in Werner and Jota, but not to replace KDB once again. If I had De Bruyne, I would keep him. That's kind of the way I'd go about it. But would I bring him in right now, despite how good the fixture is against Watford? No. Should I sell Robertson to get Chelsea players? I personally wouldn't, but to be fair, if you've already got Trent, then yes, it makes sense. I don't think it's a bad thing, basically. But I personally would keep Robertson. Double Chelsea and Pukki says, Hajj, fair enough. That could be the way to go. And I will be thinking about this over the next week or so. I agree, Grood Beast. I don't think Foden's a reliable FPL asset, globally underperforming this season, football-wise. Thoughts? I think he's had a good season overall. But let's say, for example, when you're looking at the PFA Young Player of the Year, I don't think he deserves it personally. I don't think he's been the best youngster. And yes, I agree. FPL-wise, look at his last 4 or 5 games. I'm pretty sure he's blanked in all of them. So he has been underperforming. The reason why people are really interested in him is the fixtures. And also Foden's quality is obviously undeniable. But would I be going out of my way to get him in? Probably not. I would rather have Jota even with limited minutes, than Foden at the moment. Unless Foden starts showing some consistency, then yes, I'd change my mind, of course. I'm open to it, but right now, no. Best triple captain, I'd probably say Mason Mount right now. If not, Gimmick 36, Salah or Kane, or Heung-min Son, of course. And there's always maybe another Liverpool player like Mane or Trent, Robertson, etc. Is there anyone else? I think a City player, if they double in 37, De Bruyne, for example, could be great. Do you think free hit 34 is advisable? To be honest, I've seen some really good free hit 34 drafts, and I think it makes sense. The thing is, though, if you've already got a strong team, there's no point using it now, and you can gain a lot more in 37, but it depends on your team ultimately. Considering selling Kane to Werner for triple Chelsea would open the door for more full bench boost 36, and I wouldn't have Kane for 37 free hit anyway. Fair enough. I still like Kane a lot, especially to captain, for example, in Gimmick 35, even over the likes of Salah, who faces Newcastle that week. But that makes sense, and if you're going to maximise your bench boost that way, and you also maximise this game week with triple Chelsea, then that could be the way to go. I'm still a bit cautious about Werner, but you never know. He's in good form right now. Yeah, exactly, Phoenix. Rest in peace. I mean, that's crazy. Unfortunately, these things happen sometimes. Pookie Mount in for Maddison and Adams for a -4. Yes, mate. I probably would do it animations, yeah. I'm wondering if there's anything I can improve on my wildcard draft. So Schmeichel, Foster, James, Trent, Robertson, Cancelo, Laporte, Saka, Salah, Havertz, Mount, Gordon, Pookie, Watkins. I like that team a lot. I understand the Watkins pick, although I'm not a big fan of him. I'd still rather go for Tony, but I know why you've gone for Watkins, so that's pretty good actually. Mateta, if he's fit, I would actually recommend them as well. Up front, I like your midfield and your defence especially. You've gone for double City defence. That's a nice differential in itself. Double Chelsea midfield like I talked about in my wildcard video. Saka. I mean, right now on a wildcard, would I really go for him? I'm not too sure, but I'm not sure what your money or your squad value is, Pat. Let me know. So the only doubts I'd really have are Watkins and possibly Saka, who's still a good option. It's just not as appealing as he once was. Is it worth buying players whose price will go up this week and sell whose prices will go down to increase the team value? Yes, it is worth it, but just bear in mind, in order to make a profit and to be able to actually make those price rises go into your favour, you need a player, once they're in your team, to go up by 0.2 million, and then their selling price goes up by 0.1 million. So let's say, for example, you bring in Bruno, he's still 4.9 million, he goes up to 5, and then you sell him, well, you're still going to sell him for 4.9. So hopefully that makes sense. But yes, it is worth it, and to chase price rises. Just bear in mind though, if you already had players from before in your original team that you have a lot of value tied up into, such as Trent Alexander-Arnold, be very careful, because if you sell him, then it's going to be more expensive to buy him back. Yeah, Pat says João Pedro. Fair enough, yep. I'm seeing a lot of shouts for him as well. And to be fair, a lot of Watford fans would tell you he's probably their best attacker other than Cucho. Do you think that free... Yeah, already answered that question, Carmichael. Is Son or Kane essential on the wild card? I don't think they're absolutely essential, but I would go for one of them. If not, at least Kulusevski. Fair enough. If you think your wildcard's going to be better without, then that makes complete sense. But then you could argue, if you have Salah, for example, in your team, you could go without Salah and go for Jota instead, and then you'd have space for Son or Kane, as well as a really good squad overall. Would you take hits to get your desired bench boost 36? Over the next few weeks, yes. But let's say, for example, you get to 36 and then you take a -12 to get a good bench boost. I don't think it's worth it personally, although a lot of those players you're bringing in are probably doubling, which, to be fair, kind of cuts the hits in a way. But yeah, I think I would be willing to take hits, but not too many. Havertz or Mount? I think I'd go for Mason Mount right now, but they're both good. Is Mount or Werner rising today? Neither, apparently, according to FPL statistics. We can go through that as well very shortly. Let me just get this up for you. Yeah, so let's search these. So Mount or Havertz? Mount is at 39%. Obviously, take this with a pinch of salt. Sometimes they change the prices out of nowhere. Havertz is at 49% too. I think Mason Mount will be the more popular pick, you could say. He's probably going to go up in price sooner. Will John Stones start against Watford? Good question. That's a really good question. Predicting a City lineup. Oh, God. I think the thing is, Walker was completely out of the squad against Liverpool. Picked up that injury against Atletico Madrid. I think, yes, he could play as the right back, and it could be Cancelo as the left back, Stones right back, Laporte and Diaz as the centre back. So I think, yes, he does play. It depends, though, a lot on Kyle Walker. Thank you, George, for the super chat. Much appreciated. Robertson and Kulusevski or Laporte and Alonso? Great question. I'd still go for Robertson and Kulusevski, though. They're both really good duos, but Robertson, for me, is still probably the best defender in the game, and Kulusevski offers the best value around his price in the midfield. So I'd go for the first duo. Thank you very much for that question. I'm now just going to go up a little bit in the chat and try to answer the last few questions. Werner, you asked, Singh, sorry. Yeah, you asked about Werner. Well, he's at 87% actually, so Werner could rise in price. Maybe today, although it's a bit unlikely. Tomorrow or Wednesday looks pretty likely, so hopefully you got that, Singh. You can see it on screen, but yeah, apologies for that. I thought you said Havertz. That's my mistake. I'm now going to go back to my team just so people are aware of how my team's lining up at the moment. Salah will be my captain, although I could just go for Reece James. And then the alternative would be Mason Mount or Havertz, whoever I bring in basically. And Rudiger could also come in. So Reece James as my captain, maybe. I'd go for something like this. Let me know, by the way, who are you going to be captaining in Game Week 34 as things stand. Things can obviously change. So let's wait and see. So let's go like this, yeah. And by the way, if you have Jose Sarr and Ramsdale like I do, which goalkeeper are you going for? I'm personally going for Jose Sarr at the moment. I don't see Ramsdale keeping a clean sheet. Free hit this Game Week 34 with triple Chelsea, City and Paul and double Man United. No, yeah, I agree. I think Game Week 34 could surprisingly be a very good free hit. But if you only have one remaining and your team is designed in such a way where you're well set up for 36 but not so much in 37, then I'd still say 37 is a great time to use it. But 34 is also a good chance to use it, as you say. I think that's a good point, yes. I've got a bench boost on one free hit remaining. Need tips when to activate it. 36 bench boost and free hit either 34 or 37. I personally prefer 37, but your team might be well set up in 37. And if it is, then I would use it right now in 34 potentially. There's always 35 or 38. I think there's plenty of times to use it. 36 for a free hit, unless you don't really have too many doublers, which would be pretty surprising. I just don't think it's worth it. If Laka's price falls, I lose chance to sign Timo. Should I get him tonight? If you're well set on that transfer anyway, then yes. And to be honest with Lacazette, he's awful. I talked about selling him in Game Week 31, so I think it's worth it, yes. Just bear in mind there's a lot of midweek action in the Premier League, so injuries could happen. You might be forced into hits. Who is first choice? Roberts, Loughton, Kilman or Nouri? So Loughton at the moment is first choice. Roberts was until Loughton reclaimed the spot recently. As for Kilman or Nouri, are they really first choice? Not really. None of them are really that nailed. Cody's always the most nailed Wolves defender. I expected Ronnie not to play against Liverpool now. Yeah, Bruno captain has advantage. Yeah, but is Bruno going to score that many points against Liverpool? Probably not, to be quite frank. Ronaldo, I think it's safe to say Ronaldo captain has probably won. And imagine Bruno does something absolutely crazy and this gets clipped or something. I mean, that's football for you. But yeah, I don't expect Ronaldo to play either right now after that dreadful news. Let's wait and see though. And you never know. He does have the mentality as well to play, through situations like that. Obviously, this is something completely different though. Obviously, it's unreal. Pickford to Foster could help me get Chelsea players, but the issue is that I bought him in Game Week 28 for the purpose of bench boost 36. Yeah, but to be fair, Foster isn't the worst choice on a bench boost than 36, but I get your frustrations. I'd probably do it though. If you're going to get triple Chelsea players and they're going to do really well for you, then yes, if you're really backing the likes of Mount, Havertz, James, Rudiger, whoever you bring in, then I think it's worth it. When to wildcard, I'd say 34 if you don't have Chelsea players. Otherwise, if you're already in a good position, then I'd say 35 might be the better time. Van Dijk and Richarlison or Robertson and Dennis? I would probably go for Robertson and Dennis. Yeah, just about. Thank you, Singh. Currently planning for wildcards, so keeping wary of price changes. Yeah, Singh, I'd highly recommend checking these price rise sites like FPL statistics, and I think in some cases you can put notifications on some of these sites, so yeah, that could be pretty helpful to you. But sometimes, as I said before, FPL headquarters just randomly change prices, it seems. Yeah, Lager, once again, I'd probably go for Mount. I don't think there's much to separate them. They're both really good choices, but I think I'd go for Mason Mount if I had none of them already. Saka to Mount or Rafinha plus Weghorst to Pukki and Mount? Honestly, mate, I would do the double. So Rafinha and Weghorst to Pukki and Mount. I think that's the best set of transfers. Havertz will be my captain. I think he could do very well this week. The same goes for Mason Mount. I just prefer Mason Mount a little bit more at the moment, but of course, you've got to do what you can with what you have, and I think Havertz is a great choice. What midfielder is better than Saka? If you have 1 million in the bank, Mason Mount, Pat. Obviously, I think you put your team out earlier, and I think you already had Mason Mount. So, which other midfielder? I'm not too sure what your team was like, but I think Kulusevski could be a good option as well. But Saka's still one of the best around this price, don't get me wrong. Zaha as well, you could consider. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it's just that I was shocked. I read the news on the stream and I was silent for like a minute. Start Schär or Weghorst? I think I'd go for Fabian Schär. Not really expecting a return from any of them, but still. Yeah, thoughts on buying Pukki now? Yes, I've got a poll out, and just to show you real quick, I'm kind of thinking about something like this. So let me just get this up. Yeah, so on the left hand side you can see me using free transfers for a -4 hit, getting the likes of Rudiger, Mason Mount and Gelhardt, which is needed to fund the other moves, in for Doherty, Rafinha and also Che Adams. On the right hand side it would be Che Adams making way for Pukki and Mason Mount coming in for Rafinha, and that would be for 2 free transfers. So yes, I am considering Timo Pukki. The reason why I like him a lot is because in Gimmick 36 I don't have any reliable striker, and also I don't have any double game week forward, and Pukki would actually kind of address both issues there. He's been in good form, and he's not going to return every single game. He might even blank against Newcastle, but I would have more faith in him than I would with the vast majority of strikers right now. Best Everton pick from Gimmick 35 onwards? Good question. I think Gordon and Richarlison are probably the top 2. Yeah, and maybe Pickford if you're looking for a second goalkeeper. What's the news about CR7? Unfortunately, his I think is it newborn, or at least his baby kid passed away, which is absolutely unbelievable. What's up, mate? ¿Crees que Ronaldo juega a pesar de lo que pasó? Yeah, es muy difícil. Ronaldo no sé si va a jugar. La verdad, es muy difícil. Jesus, I'm not too sure. Para mí no va a jugar, pero nunca sabes con Ronaldo, lamentablemente. Así que sí, creo que no va a jugar. Saka to Mount or Kulusevski to Mount? I'd rather keep Kulusevski and get rid of Saka. Wildcard draft for bench boost 36, Dylan? Yeah, okay. We'll go through this very shortly. Ranked 270k, chasing 200, top 200k. Werner worth a punt? Yeah, I think he is worth a punt, definitely. Especially if you're not too convinced with the likes of Havertz or any of the defenders we keep talking about. So I think it's definitely worth a punt, and Werner is showing some good form, which is quite rare for the forwards. Is Laporte nailed or prone to rotation? Well, throughout the season he's been nailed, so I would say no. But now Stones has been fit for a long time. If Walker comes back from injury, then he could resume his spot as the right back. Cancelo will be the left back, and then it will be between Stones and Diaz and Laporte to make up those final 2 centre-back positions. But now with Walker out, that could be Stones right back, and then it would be the 2 centre-backs there, Diaz and Laporte. So I think it should be fine. Thoughts on Reguilon? He's been really bad against Brighton. Can't wait for Conte to bench him for good. To be honest, I just don't like him as an FPL option this season, because whenever he does show some good form or gets an attack and return, he gets benched anyway, or he's got injury problems. Yeah, I don't think he's worth considering in FPL. Emerson's the only Spurs defender I would consider. It's a big shame Doherty's injured. I think he was a great option with the attacking potential, and also, he's just been in great form for Spurs. He's been a difference maker for them. Yeah, Reguilon, not for me, and I agree, he's been in pretty bad form. The only thing I kind of remember him for this season is just copying people's celebrations. Sell Barnes, who would you sell him for? If it's for a Chelsea midfielder, then yes. Otherwise, I'd keep the faith and be patient. Yeah, Henry, I could try. Yes, I could try. A guy says, do you think he will still play? I don't think so, but that's why I was kind of struggling earlier when I was answering Heel's question. I'm not too sure if he is going to start. He still could, but I personally don't think so. Yeah, I agree, Lager. They're both good though, Mount and Havertz, for you, Fox, but I'd slightly lean more towards Mount just because of the form. He's been really, really good recently, and I think I would go for him instead of Havertz if I had to pick one. So let's go through this. Since people are asking, we're going to try to produce a Game Week 36 bench boost team. So, by the way, feel free to offer your suggestions. I'd be, very curious to see your thoughts as well. So let's try to do this. In goal, once again, it'd be Schmeichel. Not much would change here. I would just keep the second goalkeeper kind of empty for the while. I will change that later on. So Robertson and Trent, I'd still go for them. I would go for one Chelsea defender. It could be Rudiger, Reece James, Alonso, etc. Let's go for Reece James. I think most people would prefer him, but yeah, him or Rudiger, you can't go too wrong. I just think Rudiger's the safer pick, and he might be the way to go. So let's put Reece James into this team. I already got him, so yeah, well done. All right, so Reece James here. Get rid of Doherty. Let's just kind of fill these positions first. So Maddison would come in. Yes, Maddison. Kulusevski. Yeah, I think we'll go kind of big in midfield. So we'll go for Mason Mount as well. The forward line. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. I would go for Timo Pukki. You could go actually for Bro. You could keep him, but let's just wait and see how this pans out. So Pukki. This is the thing. Which double game week strikers do we go for? This is my main problem. This is quite tricky. I mean, Jesus, what do we even do here? Obviously, ideally you'd want Harry Kane, but you will have to get rid of Salah or Son potentially. Alright, so for a bench boost 36 team, you could maybe, okay, just hear me out, you could maybe consider not having Salah, maybe having Diego Jota instead, although is he going to be nailed on over Diaz? And, 2 games in the space of a few days, is Jota going to play both? There's always going to be these kind of questions, but, let's wait and see. Let's see though. This is going to be quite difficult for me to achieve, but I would like to have Harry Kane here. Triple Spurs attack is a bit excessive, isn't it? This is the thing. Yes. Doherty would also have to get rid of. Leicester. Alright, so yeah. Crystal Palace, only a single game week. Otherwise, I would heavily consider them. Watford, Watford striker, maybe Dennis actually. Okay, you know what? We'll stick with Salah. We'll stick with Salah for now. But it's just something to consider. Maybe not going for him. All right, so Salah. Remember, this is a bench boost, by the way, so it doesn't really matter. Doherty. Yeah, maybe. Okay, I don't like Arsenal right now, but you could maybe go for Ben White, just a double gaming defender. Is there anyone else? Anyone else that we could consider in defence? I wouldn't double up on Leicester defence personally. Despite how good their fixtures are, multiple doubles, etc. If you don't have a free hit remaining, then yes, it makes sense. Back-to-back doubles for them. But it gets a bit difficult here. So also bear in mind, City could have a double in 36. That would change things dramatically as well, because then you could just go for Cancelo and Laporte. I would still maybe go for Cancelo actually, or Laporte. Either of them. You don't necessarily need everyone to be a double game weeker. So I do something like this. Doesn't really matter who's on the bench because it's going to be a bench boost anyway. So how much money do we need? Yeah, still need a bit of money from somewhere. So really big at the back. Jose Sarr, I'd probably just go down to Foster. How much is Raya actually, by the way? 4.3. Not too bad. But yeah, I'll just go for Foster. But yeah, let me know which changes would you make to this bench boost wildcard squad. I'd be curious to know. Haven't done the greatest job here. Yeah, Lager, unfortunately that happened. Thank you, Fox. Much appreciated. And let me know what you think of this wildcard team as well as the free hit team that I'll try to make very soon. But obviously a lot can change from now until when Game Week 37 happens. Yeah, Bruno Fernandes was in a car crash yesterday and is not injured, I heard. Yeah, exactly, Eddie. And now the Ronaldo news. So it's just bad news for United all round. Liverpool blank in 37. Is it worth to get 2 Liverpool players for 36? No, I still think it's worth tripling up and then you can free hit in 37. But either way, let's wait and see where that Liverpool-Southampton game falls under. Maybe I've missed a trick or something. Maybe there's someone actually kind of already clarified when that fixture will fall under. But at the moment, we just don't know. Yeah, Richarlison, says Daniel. Fair enough. I was kind of considering him, but I'm not a big fan of him. Pookie, Dennis, Mateta. Yes, I like that forward line. So let's see. What do I have? Pookie, Dennis, and Vekos. Yeah, I'd say Mateta. He should be fine in time for that. So, yeah. 0.6 million remaining. Okay, some of you will have enough money to make this squad. But let me know what you think of this. This is a pretty decent bench boost team. So you've got 13 doublers and you've got 2 single game weekers. Mateta at home to Watford and Cancelo at home to Newcastle. You know, it's almost as good as you can get, really. Matty Cash, yeah, that's a really good shout. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, maybe instead of Cancelo, you could go for Cash. But long term, I definitely prefer Cancelo. And also bear in mind, once again, City could have a double in 36. And if that's the case, it's Cancelo over Cash all day long. But yeah, we definitely have enough money for this. 1.3 million to spare. What could we upgrade? That would be interesting. Yeah, that's pretty... I mean, for those of you who have the funds, you could maybe do White to Rudiger. And you can double up on Chelsea defence that way as well. And maximise Game Week 34. So... yeah, I think that could be the way to go. Just bear in mind, I don't have the money for this, but you may have it. So if you're looking to bench boost in 36, I'd go for something like this. It doesn't have to be, you know, player for player. I also made a separate video for the best wildcard team, and it was more designed just for the rest of the season, and you can free hit in 37 to go and navigate that game week as well. Have you seen the predicted lineup about Liverpool? Jota seems to be the guy in the league. Yeah, I agree. That's what I think as well. I think Jota will start in the league, Diaz starts in the cups, and also Matip in the league, and then Konate in the cups. And if that's the case, then I would like the likes of Matip and also Jota in my FPL team. And he could also cover the likes of Salah. When is it a good time to play the last free hit chip? Like I always say, 37. You could even consider 34. If you don't have Chelsea players, you only have one free transfer, and you also don't have too many City, Liverpool players or something like that, United, and you want Ronaldo... oh, I'm not even sure if he's going to play tomorrow though. But yes, I think I would maybe free in 34. But I'd probably say 37. Gone for this as my wildcard draft. Okay, I like it. Yes, Schmeichel, Heaton, Trent, Robbo, James Laporte, Cancelo, Salah, KDB, Havertz, Mount, Kulusevski, Mateta, Pookie, Broja. I think if you have enough money, I would just go for Foster over Heaton. Your defence is very good. I have no problems with it. Yeah, you've gone for double up in Chelsea midfield. I like your team a lot, mate. Very, very good. And you've covered Spurs attack with Kulusevski. To be honest, that's really good, Stephen. I don't have any issues with it whatsoever. That's really good. Welcome, Stephen. He expects heavy rotation from Gimmick 35 onwards in preparation for the FA Cup. Yeah, Chelsea assets may only be good for the short term, in his opinion. Fair enough. I mean, this is the thing, though. Chelsea are knocked out of the Champions League, so that's one less thing to worry about. But I can see what he means. You know, there probably will be rotation from time to time, you know, especially around Game Week 37 for the FA Cup final. So yeah, that could be a good point, actually. And that's why, for me, 2 Chelsea players could be the sweet spot. You don't need 3. I still think it's worth chasing the upside, though, and going for their players. Son down to Havertz gives you enough money to get upgrades across. That could be a possibility. So maybe Son to Havertz, and then let's say we have like 2 million. What do we do with that extra 2 million? Well, we could do Cash to Cancelo easily, and I would still rather go for Cancelo over Cash despite the double game mix and all of that. Forwards, though, maybe Ivan Toney instead of Mateta. But yeah, that's really it. Brentford at home to Southampton. It's just a shame that Toney doesn't have too many doubles. Otherwise, I'd highly recommend him to everyone. And then maybe the second goalkeeper. You could go to Martinez, to maybe... So let's test this out. So Son to Havertz, and then Foster to Martinez. Yeah, obviously we've got Rudiger as well, so we change him as well. So don't worry about that. Foster to Martinez, and then Rudiger to Cancelo. So we could do something like that as well. But I would rather go for what I just had before. Although this looks pretty decent as well. And instead of Martinez, you can go for, who knows, Lloris or Pickford. There's different options. Nick Pope. I think I'd go for something like this as well. But my preference is the team I showed just before with Heung-min Son over Kai Havertz, and go for double Chelsea defence if you're looking to bench boost, basically. But yeah, both look pretty good. It looks pretty solid. And thank you for the suggestion. We're going to go with this now. And yeah, we'll also do Cancelo down to Rudiger. Yeah, okay, we'll do something like that. But yeah, for those of you who have the money, definitely go for Cancelo over Matty Cash. Saka out, Foden in. I would rather target the Chelsea midfielders like Mason Mount, but yes, Foden's not a bad option. It's just he's blanked a lot in recent games and he hasn't been in the greatest of form, in my opinion. I think you can do Kane, Gordon for Son, Mateta. Fair enough, that's a good shout as well. That's actually a good shout. Gordon has the double, and Kane is arguably a better captaincy option than Son in that game week. White to Laporte, yes, if you have the money, definitely. Foden or Maddison for the rest of the season? I would say Maddison. The problem I have is rotation. Otherwise, for me, it's Maddison for sure. No City, Watford next. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, that's why I would highly recommend Cancelo, but then you need to downgrade someone else. But that is a good point. I would at least have one City player, whether it's Laporte or Cancelo. I don't think you need a midfielder, though, as much as people would disagree there. And what you could do on the wildcard is go for De Bruyne first, and then heading into Gimmick 36, if City don't double, you can get Mohamed Salah back in or go for Jota and spread the funds around a little bit more. But check out my best wildcard team video. I've got Cancelo in there, and I also mentioned Foden, although I don't have him in the team, also De Bruyne. But yeah, very hard to fit everyone in. I wish we could have 6 defenders, let's say, and probably... Let's say if I wanted an ideal formation, it'd be 5 midfielders, 6 midfielders and 5 defenders. Yeah. My maths isn't great, isn't it? 1 goalkeeper. Yeah. Just ignore what I'm saying. Basically, 0 forwards is basically what I'm trying to say. God Almighty. Who is more value for money, Trent or Robertson? I would say Robertson. And is Matip a good buy? He is. I'd still be slightly concerned if he's going to play every single league game, but at the moment it looks like he's playing the league. And is Kanate playing in the Cups? Let's wait and see though. Havertz, Alonso and Mount. Yeah, fair enough. I prefer Rudiger and James over Alonso, but he is a good option on paper, and Havertz and Mount also pretty good. Yes, Dewsbury Hall's a very good enabler at 4.4, definitely. I would rather deaden my striker force though and go for more money in my midfield and defence. That's why I've gone for something like this, but that's a really good suggestion. Do you think Alonso in for White is a good move? Definitely Vincent. It's just I prefer a few other defenders like Rudiger, but Alonso has the upside. I'm having a City attacker, Watford leads Newcastle. I definitely want to tick in that raffle. Fair enough. It's just De Bruyne is the only one I'd have a lot of confidence in. Phil Foden, as much as he's quite nailed, not really a big fan of what he's been doing recently, but I would back him to get some returns in that fixture run. So yes, that's a really good shout as well. Rudiger to Cancelo, Son to Havertz, Mateta to Watkins, Richarlison. Yeah, I think that's pretty good suggestions as well. I'm not a big fan of Watkins or Richarlison though. That's kind of my logic behind it. But let's change things up a little bit. Let's say, for example, instead of Son, we'll go for Phil Foden, especially if City have a double in 36. That could be a really good call. And then we can go for Cancelo in for Cash or Rudiger. Take your pick there. It's up to you. And then 0.9 million left in the bank. And then you can do whatever you want with the rest. Maybe people will prefer this draft a little bit more. More City players. You don't have to have 15 players with a double game week in 36 in order to maximise that bench boost. The likes of Cancelo can outscore a lot of double game weekers, for example. Which City midfielder would you pick for the rest of the season? De Bruyne. If you have the money, it would be De Bruyne. Otherwise, probably Phil Foden. I don't trust the rest enough in terms of minutes and also in terms of attacking returns. Bernardo Silva's nailed, but he just doesn't get enough attacking returns. Then you look at Mahrez. He gets a lot of productivity and goal output, but not enough minutes. So yeah, is Pukki worth it? Definitely. I think he's probably the best striker other than Kane and possibly Ivan Toney right now. Welcome, my wildcard. I'm bench boosting 36. Yep, I like that a lot. Planning to swap Kulusevski, CR7 Johnny with Kane, Gordon and Laporte in Gimmick 36. I'm not too sure about Ronaldo right now, especially with the news that happened. I don't know if he's going to play tomorrow, but that looks like a good team and it's a good plan, to be fair. And it's quite similar to what we've been talking about today and also in my video earlier. I'm not sure about Johnny though. I don't think I'd go for him. Sissoko and Emerson Real for Gimmick 36 bench boost. Yes. Emerson Real, I'm not too sure about Sissoko. You could just go for Dewsbury Hall or Gordon or even Ramsey. Already have Rudiger plus Mount. Getting Alonso for share for a -4. Yeah, I think it's worth it, Harvey. If you can't afford the likes of James, then I would go for it. Do you think they should make strikers 5 points per goal? Yes, I think they should. Midfielders are so overpowered, and they always have been. Strikers always need to do more, I mean, just take a look at Kane versus Son, for example. The main reason, or one of the main reasons why Son tends to get more point is because, you know, the extra point for a clean sheet and for a goal. Saka or Kulusevski on a wildcard, I'd probably say Kulusevski, especially if you're not going with Son or Kane. I would cover Spurs attack with at least one player. Is KDB fit for the Watford game? Well, let's wait and see what happens in the Brighton game. I think he's going to be fit for that, and therefore he will play against Watford. He's crucial for City's title fight. So, yes, I think he will be fit, but let's wait and see. If something happens and his injury is aggravated, then of course what I say now is not going to be true when the game happens, but I think he will be. Alonso goodbye. Yes, Javid. Yes, he is. Yes, Group Beast. Yeah, I've seen the I heard your comment anyway. I saw your comment. I didn't see the predicted lineup per se, and I'm not too surprised if Jota starts in the league and Diaz starts in the cups. It's a bit similar to the Konate-Matip situation. Thoughts on Pep throwing the FA Cup for Premier League Champions League? It's kind of a role reversal, isn't it? Not only did Pep do the kind of Klopp hug to Jurgen Klopp himself, but he's also doing what Klopp used to do by throwing away the other competitions and prioritising the Premier League and Champions League. But you could argue Liverpool have maybe even better squad depth than City this season. That sounds crazy, but I don't think their squad depth is as good as it used to be for the citizens. So, yeah, I think that is possibly what they're doing. Ederson, Cancelo, Laporte, Havertz, James, Mount, Trent, Salah on a wildcard. Thoughts? I'd say also Robertson in that list for Liverpool, and you can always free hit in 37 if you're kind of worried about Liverpool blanking in 37. Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably the best triple up in all of those cases. If not, I'd go for two. So Cancelo and Laporte, and maybe Foden or De Bruyne if you can afford it, the Simpsons, and not Ederson. You could just go for Schmeichel, someone cheaper, but Ederson will probably keep the most clean sheets alongside Alisson until the end of the season. Maybe even Mendy could be in that discussion as well. Aside from Rudiger and James, who do you think is the next best pick? Alonso. Yeah, I'd probably say him and Thiago Silva in that order. Then it would be the likes of Christensen, etc. But yeah, I'd probably say Alonso is the next best. Broja to Pukki, I have Jay Rodriguez. I think I'd do it. I think Pukki's worth it. He also doubles in 36. Broja doesn't. And Broja hasn't been that great recently. So yeah, I'd go for Pukki. Do you think Justin's nailed? I'm not too sure if he is nailed, but he is the kind of fullback that I point towards in terms of the one that I would recommend the most from the Leicester defence. Is Shea worth a keep in wildcard? On a wildcard, I wouldn't keep him. He was someone to buy in Gimmick 33 because he also has a good fixture in 34 as well as the double. That just happened or is about to happen. I don't think it's worth keeping. I mean, he's not a bad option and you can always bench him in the tougher games, but you might as well look elsewhere. Thoughts on ditching Salah, being in awful form? Mane or KDB, great premiums. Yeah, the thing is with Mane though, I don't think he's been in great form anyway. Like against City, he didn't have an amazing performance. It's just City were pretty lackluster and Stefan made such a big mistake. But yeah, they are good differentials to consider. I think De Bruyne would be more tempting for me than Mane. I'd rather cover Liverpool with Jota or Diaz, depending on how you think they're going to line up, and also the Liverpool fullbacks. Yeah, Man City still have the better squad. It's the injuries that are costing City alongside the easier draw for Liverpool. I don't know. I think it's a debatable one. I mean, you look at the attackers, for example. Liverpool have 5 very good attackers. Diaz, Jota, obviously Salah, Firmino, Mane. You look at the midfield as well. Very, very good squad depth. The defence as well. They've got Tsimikas and Robertson. If City, let's say, for example, Cancelo gets injured, who would they play on the left-back position? Zinchenko, who you saw how poor he was against Liverpool the other day. I don't know. I think Liverpool have pretty similar squad depth to City right now, but I can understand your point. Would you sell Rafinha or Barnes? Probably Rafinha. Despite the fact that Rafinha and Leeds have probably been better in recent games than Leicester and Barnes, I think I'd sell Rafinha. He faces City in 35 as well. It's a tough one. Let me make that clear. And he could do very well against Crystal Palace, but I think long term it makes more sense to get rid of Rafinha instead. But I might be wrong. Yeah, true, Harry. That exactly. Yeah, KDB, Jota. Mane's still good, but I think KDB and Jota I'd probably prefer a little bit more. Thank you very much, Amin. Much appreciated. And just put any of your last few questions and comments. We'll be doing more streams and videos throughout the week, so don't you worry. And massively appreciate those who tune in today. Aside from Rudiger and James, yeah, once again, Anas, I'd say Alonso. Already answered your question, mate. So let's go back to go back to the screen. This is kind of a wildcard team, for those of you that are looking to bench boost in 36, instead of Foden, you could go for Kai Havertz, because City might not even double in 36, and then maybe instead of Cancelo, you can go for Matty Cash, and also Heung-min Son can come in. So different ways you can go about it. I also made a best wildcard team video earlier. Check that out. That is perfect for those of you that have one free hit remaining, and I would recommend using it in 37. Maybe you could use it in 34 as well, but obviously if you're using the wildcard now, then you're not going to use it, the free hit, in 34 as well. So thank you very much. Let's also show you how my team is lining up without transfers. That's the big difference there. I'm looking to get players like Pukki up front, also Chelsea defenders maybe like Rudiger, and in midfield, Mount or Havertz. I'm mainly leaning towards Mount at the moment, but it's pretty tight at the moment, yeah. No problem, Anas. No replacement for Trent, Fabinho. Cancelo doesn't have a replacement because of Mendy and Walker injury. It's a flip of a coin. Yeah, also kind of outside, of your control situations. But yeah, true. Trent, the thing is though, they could play Joe Gomez. It's not a great replacement, but it's not the worst. Fabinho could also play as a right back. He's done it before. As for Fabinho, yes, I get your point. I don't think they have a great replacement. City have a slightly better, understudy in Fernandinho for Rodri, but it just kind of depends. I don't think City's squad depth is as great as it used to be, basically. Thank you, Ian. Eddie says, hi Dylan, should I do a -4 Mount for Saka and De Bruyne for Salah? To be honest, I like the -4. And as much as I like Salah and I like the captaincy this week, I think that -4 is worth it in the end. But you could just do Saka to Mount. If you can afford it, for a free transfer, that's enough. But the -4 looks good, Eddie. Is KDB nailed with Champions League semis? The thing is, though, he's still been playing Kevin De Bruyne a lot. And, yeah, I think the main reason why I didn't play against Liverpool is because he had an injury. He was picking, he had a minor injury, and that was pretty disruptive. I think he will still play. He might get 1 or 2 benchings, but I think he'll play the vast majority. Thank you, George. And welcome. Best replacement for James. I wouldn't get rid of James, mate. Manish. I don't think it makes sense. Rafinha and Barnes both have the same number of fixtures coming up. I will free hit in 37. True. So I guess it's just a matter of Rafinha. Yeah, fair enough. It's a team-dependent thing as well. And if you can afford to bench him in 35, for example, then go ahead. I think it makes sense. Rafinha does look better than Barnes recently, for sure. I'm not going to question that. I think, it's a tough one. I think with Barnes, just hasn't really been at it, and it's a bit of a shame, with all those fixtures and the doubles that he had. He was a great purchase heading into Gimmick 33, but his form has been awful. Getting Ronaldo and Elanga on the wildcard for double, then moving them with 2 free transfers in 36. It's a good plan. I'm just not too sure if it's worth it though, especially with the Ronaldo news. But yeah, he should be good in time for Gimmick 34. So it makes sense, and it could actually work out for you, to be fair. Captaincy on Mount or Havertz, I'd go for Mason Mount, but I think it's very close between the two. I think if I had to make a list of the best captaincy options this week, it'd be Mount, Havertz, Reece James, Kevin De Bruyne and Salah. That would be my top 5. No Spurs makes the bench boost team much better, but the ownership scares me. I still go for Kulusevski though, Singh. I just don't see anyone else around his price who offers as good value. What you could do is go for Gordon and maybe Dewsbury Hall, and then you can spend more money on your forward line and defence. But yeah, I agree. Having no Son or Kane would actually benefit your bench boost greatly. But the same could be said about going without Salah or De Bruyne as well. Yeah, I just mentioned the best captaincy options, mate. Mount, Havertz, Reece James, De Bruyne and Salah. Those would be my top 5. Probably in that order, somewhat. Might get rid of Gallagher for Kulusevski and Maupay for Tony. I like those transfers, mate. I'd probably go for it, yeah. If you don't have a Chelsea midfielder Manish, you could go for Mason Mount or Kai Havertz. But yeah, that looks pretty good. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. We'll be discussing my team and more of this in future videos and streams, so do not worry about that. If you haven't already, smash the like button and subscribe for new. Be sure to hit the notification bell so you never miss a single upload or deadline stream, and the same goes for reaction streams. There's going to be more UCL fantasy content, so stay tuned for that. We've got Champions League football back next week. I'm back into the top 800 in that game, so looking forward to see what I can do there. Hopefully push into the top 500, see where it takes us, and that will be very good. So just enjoy UCL Fantasy and FPL. Same with F1 Fantasy, which is also returning this weekend. A lot of sport to enjoy. So you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, to keep up to date with the latest FPL, UCL Fantasy news, and also just see how we're getting on, and also just any updates about videos and streams. enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll read out any last comments that come in, and yeah, then we're just going to be wrapping up this stream pretty early, I guess. We've been going on for an hour and a half, answering a lot of questions. Hello Dylan, thoughts on doing Che Adams to Mateta and Saka to Mason Mount for a -4? Honestly, mate, I'd do it, Kobe. I think that's a great -4. We'll talk about this more in the deadline stream as well, but I'd probably do it. I wouldn't make an early transfer with the amount of Premier League games in the midweek, but definitely, I have no problems with that. Just keep in mind that Mateta came off injured in the FA Cup semi-final, so if he's injured, of course, then don't go for him. Maybe go for Pukki instead, Kobe, if you can afford it. He would be my preference over Mateta. Do you think Zaha is a good option going forward? Yes, he is. He's one of the midfielders I recommended in the Wildcard team, if you don't go for those that I mentioned in the best Wildcard team video. But yeah, he's definitely, I'd say, top 10 midfielders to choose from. Probably the best Crystal Palace asset alongside Mateta and Anderson. Thank you, Singh. Got to leave for early tomorrow morning. Hope to catch further videos soon. Thank you, Singh. Yeah, there's going to be a transfer tips video in the next few days. The same goes for a team selection and also UCL fantasy content. The best Limitless team, Wildcard team, and my team selection. The same goes for the usual deadline stream. And there could be a reaction stream for Gimmick 35, probably on the Sunday. So keep an eye on that. Both Mount and Havertz or just one? I think on a wild card, I'd be tempted to go for both of them, but it ultimately depends on your preference. Do you want to go for double Chelsea defence instead? And which players would you bring out in your midfield in order to get Mount and Havertz? But yes, I think one's enough on a free transfer. On a wild card, I'd be tempted by both. Thank you, Adam, for tuning in. Much appreciated. And thank you, Steve. Thank you, Kobe. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. So enjoy the football as always. All the best of luck for the rest of Gimmick 33 and also Gimmick 34. And I'll see you next time.